Hey everybody, this is Lisa Harper, and you're listening to the Not Ready Yet Curating Conversations for the Aging Journey podcast. This is the show that changes the conversations we have about life decisions and aging with our loved ones. Let's have more honest conversations where we speak the quiet parts out loud. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Ramer, senior home coach, founder of Organized Haven, and Polk County's only certified professional organizer and certified senior move manager. She's also a chronic disorganization specialist and a contributing author in the NAIPC's book, Aging in Place Conversations, the Caregivers Edition, where her chapter, Caring Through Clutter, shares real-world strategies for caregivers navigating the emotional and physical challenges of supporting loved ones at home. Nicole, I'm so glad you're here. I look forward to having this conversation because so much of this is misunderstood and mislabeled when it comes to clutter, safety, and aging at home.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. It's nice to be interviewed by, or to curate a conversation with, shall I say, a fellow senior home coach. So I feel like we've known each other for at least a couple of years and talked to each other almost every single day over that last couple of years. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with you finally.
And I agree, Nicole, because the thing we know is that the heart that comes with this side of the business, right? You're working with a family, like that's your client, you know? And you and I know that passion is what draws us all together. That you're here because your level of expertise and your guidance and how you care for families and transitions. How do you assist a family?
Okay, yeah. Well, so the answer to that I think has changed over the years because I didn't set out to become a senior move manager. When I started managing moves, I thought that I invented the idea of senior move management. I can't say that I was calling myself a senior move manager at the time. I was a professional organizer. And crisis, somewhat, is what led me even to this profession because I set out originally to just help people, everyday people in their homes, feel less overwhelmed, have less clutter, not be so stressed by their surroundings. And I was that person who I feel was born organized. People question that. Is it even possible to be born organized, or is it just kind of a learned behavior? Either, whatever the answer to that is, the people who become disorganized, usually it's because they're thrown into chaos. And so that could be the same with an older adult who is moving, or their adult child who's trying to help them through that transition and they don't know where to start. It's usually a crisis that leads them there. And usually they're not quite ready yet, right, for that move. And so I saw not just piles in helping people get organized and let go of the things that were weighing them down in their space, but instead of just piles, I was seeing patterns. And it's usually the older adult who maybe has suffered a fall or some sort of other injury, or maybe even a health crisis in general, a diagnosis or a disease, and ultimately it could lead to the hospital and rehab or long-term rehab. And so even the loss of spouse can make someone feel a sense of urgency and needing to make a move, maybe because it was the spouse who took care of the house and the finances and who would know all of the answers and what to do in a certain situation. So I realized 3 years in that I wasn't just organizing stuff, but I was helping people organize change.
That's beautiful, organized change, helping them do that. When we talk about how somebody moves through life, I think a lot of things are how they interpret change. You know, are they willing to grasp it and hold it and move through it, or are they resistant? And that is where, you know, and that makes so much sense. And you had said something else, you know, it's not piles, it's patterns. What patterns do you see that are pretty consistent in the people that you help?
They're usually at odds with their loved ones, maybe over the situation or over the things that they've collected in their lifetime. And so the kids are thinking about the logistics, right? And they are leading with a talk such as, we need to talk about the house, especially if they're coming in from out of state. And we had a couple situations like that at the start of the year. So the family comes down to Florida for the holidays and sees how mom and dad are living in their house. And they were just here a year before, and it was not like that when they were here last. And, you know, their parent isn't sharing everything that they're going through in that house and the struggles that they're facing. They're, you know, maybe I'm not at all ignorant to the fact that they are aging, and maybe even the things that surround them are causing a hazard and a fall risk, but they're just living the best that they can. And about 90% of seniors want to live out the rest of their days in their home. And so if they're facing any kind of cognitive decline or health crisis or clutter situation that makes it seem evident that they need to move. Sometimes the house is killing them, is how the family feels, but the way that they approach the conversation isn't one usually that helps their parent feel like anyone understands what they're going through or really sees their best interests at heart.
I mean, who wants to be told what to do, right? And so with all good intentions, I think we come in going, okay, here we go. This is how we get from A to B. So if the adult kids are coming in and saying, we have to do this, you got to go, I'm summarizing, but
yes,
that is, and that's why we talk about the stuff so much, right? Like our personal belongings in our home and what we surround ourselves with, because until somebody feels at peace with how that's being handled, I don't think they can actually start to make the steps into the next chapter. What do you think about that?
Exactly. Well, and I think that's where the conversation needs to shift. And so instead of, you know, just reaching conclusions on your own as the adult child who knows better, because mom and dad, they know better. They've always been the one making the decisions all of their life. And so they don't want that. They don't want someone coming and telling them, here's what you need. Instead, maybe we start with curiosity and we ask them what feels hardest about change and what do you want your next chapter to look like? Do you enjoy the way that you're living now and with the surroundings that you have right now? I mean, do you want to sit down on the couch and watch TV for the rest of your life and the depressing news? Or what would you like to spend your time learning, doing, whether it's playing bingo or going to the movies or getting into crafts, sewing again for the first time in however many years, meeting people and having someone to talk to, especially if you're alone and isolated in your house. Maybe instead of focusing, now the work that I do, I'm highly focused on the where, right? Where is it that we are going to be resettling you or your loved one? Is it going to be in this house but decluttered and, you know, just better set up for aging in place? Or is it going to be at a new community, independent living or even assisted living? And what does that space like? I'm very highly focused at Organized Haven on the new space. You hear me talk all the time on the senior call about pack with the unpack in mind, right? Know where you're going before you start packing, because you don't want to pack a bathroom with 8 drawers where you're going to a bathroom with 3 smaller drawers, or perhaps no drawers at all. We've got to make some drawers. We've got to use some dresser drawers or something for your extra bath contents. But for the person who has no intention of moving yet, the idea and the conversation should or would be better had about what that person's next chapter looks like to them and how they want to live.
Some people probably know that this isn't the best thing, but they don't know how to move through the conversation. I've been into homes where somebody kind of has like a command center built around them. You know, it's one chair in the living room. They have everything there. They have the little tables set up that, you know, on this side, it's like a bill opening side. They have like their little letter opener, remote. I mean, you can just kind of go right around in a circle and then they have a way to get out. But I call that like, it's almost like they build a little command center.
I like that.
That's what it looks like to me.
Looking at it, because that's how they see it. It's everything they need. They're not going to forget about that bill or that doctor's appointment. They're going to read that book because it's there in their face. And I think that's how a lot of people feel like they can get things done and be successful with their goals, is if it's right there, you know?
Yeah.
It's why my files are all on the wall behind me in file trays, because if it's in a drawer, I'm going to completely forget about it, or just in a pile in front of me. Maybe I have the top priority on top, A, B, C, this is the order in which I want to do it, but still it feels unseen to me. And so I think that happens as we age too. We don't want to forget about it. We want it to be top of mind, and we are afraid. At some point, we get afraid, even at a young age. In my 40s, it all the time. Oh, I forgot. No, if it's not on my calendar or written down, I'm probably not going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like those visual cues and reminders. And sometimes I look at it as like there's not as much having to get up and down, which isn't a great thing. Like I want you to get up and down and move around, right?
Absolutely.
So when you go into it, like what is the biggest resistance that you feel when you're working with your clients?
Letting go of stuff. That's actually a very easy question to answer, because we space plan for a move. And what that looks like for us is we're measuring the new floor plan, the one that you get from the builder, the construction team, the senior living community, whoever you get it from. It's not 100% accurate. It really just never is. And with independent living communities, retirement communities, they'll have a model, and each apartment could be different if it was customized, or if it's in a different spot in the building or a different building altogether. There can be columns in one, pantries in the other, and it's just different. And so it takes a customized approach to making sure that their furniture wish list of items, sometimes 70 pieces or more in a 1,000-square-foot apartment, we want to make sure that's going to fit. And it's not just the furniture we're concerned about, but as a senior move manager, we are highly attentive on the items that are going to be fitting into drawers, like I shared with the bathroom example, but also cabinets, closets. And so we ultimately, the bottom line, Lisa, is we don't want to bring in 100 boxes of things when only 50 boxes worth are going to fit. But people generally have never done that any of the times that they've moved. Some of our clients, they say, oh, I can handle the space plan. I've moved a dozen times in the last 10 years, or I am an AutoCAD expert. I'm a retired engineer and I've got the space plan. They change their mind later, and that's probably a whole nother conversation that we can have. But ultimately, the people who they think that they've got this, or they're really concerned about letting go of something that's important to them. They don't want to rush through it, so they just say, I'll deal with it on the other side. I'll deal with it when the time comes or when I get there. And of course, as downsizing specialists, that's not going to happen. We have to pivot if it does, because ultimately we know that those extra 50 boxes, or really all 100 of them, because who, when they move on move day, unpacks everything? Nobody, unless you have this kind of help where a full team is coming in and unpacking as things come in, which is what we do. So there's 5 to 7 people on any average move with us, and so the idea is to have not one more box to unpack at the end. And the reason why senior living communities refer these services primarily over traditional moving services or moving companies is because they know that there's not going to be room to even step into that apartment. It's literally life and death sometimes with the amount of things that are there, and there's no getting through it. It's extremely stressful, overwhelming. Senior living communities are then having to open up model apartments or empty apartments and saying, sure, you can store these things temporarily, but temporarily, that sometimes can take years.
Yeah. And what I hear you saying is that you really are giving an education on what will fit in the next place. And it's like, this education is not only for logistics, but I feel like it's also the energy that you bring forward into this new space. I feel like at any age we can still have a fresh start.
Absolutely.
I will continue to believe that. I feel like we are never too old to learn. We're never too old to try something. And we're never too old to have a fresh start. But if we don't allow ourselves it, by what you're describing, packing up a 2,500 square foot home and shoving it into an 1,100 square foot home, you're planning this out and creating a system for them that it's like, this is what you're going from, this is what you're going into. And let's do that wise, safely, with less stuff. And how do we kind of make it more fun and exciting, about what we take forward and what we move forward? When people reach out to you, do they really know where they're going when they reach out to you, or are you part of that plan too?
We are part of that plan too, in rare occasions. It's actually a lot of the business that comes our way is because we are referred by somebody or a multitude of people. I just got a text from my local senior helpers coordinator yesterday, and she said, I sent someone your way. But these individuals are also finding out about us from their realtor, from their senior living community, their financial advisor, their friend, their neighbor. A lot of times the adult children say, you moved, Mom, and I know I'm not a senior, but will you move me too? And so usually the decision has already been made by the time they call Organized Haven. But more and more, especially with Downsizers Club and some other initiatives I have in getting education direct to the senior and their families who need it, they are thankfully coming to us with questions before crisis. And that's been my ultimate goal, because it'll be 13 years this April that I started my little Me, Myself, and I organizing company. I never intended for my husband to start working with me 3 years later. Last night I realized it was his 10th anniversary at Organized Haven. I never imagined that it would become what it is today, and actually doing the moves ourselves too. So I pinch myself every day.
That's great that people are starting to reach out to you sooner, because
Right.
earlier in their process, because the number of decisions that people have to make is part of the overwhelm that paralyzes people from taking any action.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're looking at everything and you start talking about plates and how many spatulas, and like you just said, going from a bathroom that has 8 drawers to 3 small ones, maybe. How can you make a decision on what moves forward if you haven't made a decision on where you're going? And we want you to still have love and comfort and things that make you feel great around you. I feel like the next place should be like almost like a living museum of your life, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's what helps to make it more exciting than daunting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even for us, for anybody in general, even a child looking at an incredibly cluttered space, they have no interest in fixing it, even if you're helping as the parent, because they're so overstimulated and overwhelmed by what's there, and they feel like they want everything. And so all of us, no matter our age, we get overwhelmed when there's significant clutter around us, or if there's just a lot of decisions we have to make. So even if we're not moving, we absolutely should be tossing the old brushes that we're not using anymore for our hair, our old toothbrushes. And so that can be an easy decision. But I remember someone who I was working with in her bathroom, she had 8 curling brushes. One of them was brand new in the box. She bought that because she felt like, I like that. And sure, I have 7 others, but I think I could use a new one. But did she ever toss the other 7? No, because there was room for it. So there it stayed. It's like your average junk drawer, or even the herbs, the spices in your pantry. My husband used to say they don't expire, and so he would say we could keep them. Well, they may not expire and go so bad that they get moldy and they're unhealthy for you, but they lose their flavor.
And why have a spice that's not going to give its full flavor to you?
Exactly. Absolutely. And we just generally, as humans, we accumulate, and, we see the sale, we feel like we need it, or even if we just want it, we have to have it. But we're not trained. It's not ingrained in us, most of us, to let go as we're taking in. And so I think that's really what causes the problem, especially when crisis happens, because there's no more time to make those decisions. And so waiting doesn't make things easier. It just makes them more expensive, more emotional, and more urgent. So going back to what you said a little bit ago about fit, downsizing is not about less, it's about fit. But not just does it fit my space, but does it fit me anymore? So we could be talking about clothing here. Does it fit me? Do I actually like wearing it? Or do I have to lose 20 pounds or even gain 20 pounds? We see that a lot in our older adult clients. Yeah. They haven't been eating well. And so if they get rid of these clothes, what are they going to have left? And they fully intend to gain the weight. A lot of times that's the reason to move too, where you have access to healthy meals 3 times a day. But also, does it fit your lifestyle? Or is it something like 4-inch stilettos that we used to wear, but we certainly shouldn't today?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know identity is so much up into this, and the things you thought you might explore in life that you never ended up, or you dabbled in it a couple times and you bought all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And you still have it, but are you really gonna, watercolor? Maybe, but you have to go through and think about those things, because it is crazy how much we do accumulate over time. Mm-hmm. I get how hard some of these things are to let go of, and why they do need a professional. They do need a professional. Senior move managers, when you encompass and write down everything that they do and every decision they help you with, I mean, it is a lot. And you touched on something, and I want to go back because I feel like people are not familiar with the chronic disorganization specialist designation. Can you help us understand what that designation is, and who it helps?
Sure. So the Institute for Challenging Disorganization has education and resources for everyone, whether it's a professional organizer like me. I'm also a member of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, NAPO. And so through my experience and education with a couple of those associations, the ICD in general, I earned designations in helping those with chronic disorganization and hoarding. And I chose to do this and learn more about it because not that I specialize in working with those who hoard, and that's the language that we are using. We don't like to label the person. No one wants to be called a hoarder. And a lot of people really just don't understand the term in general. It's thrown around. Even when you see, Hoarders, the show, it still somehow correlates to any person who has clutter is a hoarder. And I don't find that to be the case. And there are different levels, and you can learn about that more on the ICD website, challengingdisorganization.org. And so we get calls all the time from the daughter or the neighbor or their church. I need your help. Mom is a hoarder. And I always take that with a grain of salt because, truthfully, the ones that I find are actually hoarding, and so it is a behavior, whether it's lifelong or it's due to cognitive decline, because there's a lot of late-age hoarding behaviors because of memory challenges. But others, the definition of chronic disorganization is basically you have been living in disorganization all of your life. It's been a lifelong problem, and it feels impossible to overcome. And so we call that chronic disorganization.
Right.
And
because it's a diagnosis. There's a level that's a medical diagnosis.
Correct.
And so when, there's a difference between simply having too much stuff and something that is affecting you personally, mentally, emotionally, there's differences there. And I know you're passionate about that. So I wanted to have that opportunity for the audience to hear, because I think that word is misused and misunderstood.
Absolutely. So it's the ones that on the phone, they'll say, well, I've got a little bit of a mess. And so, but it won't take long. The impression that someone who's truly hoarding has is that it's not a hoard. They may not understand at all that there is a problem and that it's causing safety hazards, health hazards even. There have been houses I've not been able to walk into. And A gentleman in particular told me one day outside of his house, this was a paper hoard. It was a lot of books, a lot of newspapers, a lot of printed articles. This was someone who really enjoyed learning and being on top of all things happening in town. Every important thing that happened was saved, and it's just stacks and stacks and stacks. And he was watching the commercials on TV and self-diagnosed himself with AFib. He thought he had the classic symptoms, something was wrong with his heart, so he went to see a heart doctor, and the heart doctor said, no, you do not have AFib. And I'm not sure what that doctor did say, but what I know he didn't, because I questioned if the doctor knew about the conditions that he was living in, because he was living with rats.
Oh, gosh.
He told me about the experiences he had in the middle of the night where he would go to use the restroom. And so he's on the toilet and the rats are in the sink. And so he's living with them. He's breathing their feces. And this is not our average client. This is more like 1% to 3% of those who we serve that are actually hoarding and living in filth. But that's my concern, is that the doctor didn't know his living conditions, and so how can he appropriately help him figure out how to be healthier?
Right.
And I think this is like, there's true isolation and true health concerns and things. They say, and I don't know the exact statistic on it, but they say that there is a hoarded house at this level in every neighborhood in America. My curiosity driving down the street and seeing an open garage, I always have to look in that garage.
God, don't look in ours.
And no, I do not have my car wrapped. No one knows who I am. I'm really not going door to door and selling my services. I'm just absolutely curious about how each person is living in their home and if there's a struggle, because I know it. But I guess because I've been doing this for 13 years, I have seen more and more of it over time. And usually it is because something happens. Ultimately, they have no choice but to get help. Yeah. They can't keep doing this anymore. They're living off of McDonald's and Burger King, and they can't even cook in their kitchen because of what's living in it with them. Gosh. You know, it's really, really sad situations. And sometimes we have a week to get them out of it because they're getting evicted. Wow. So my goal, Lisa, is just to get to this point. I'm so happy to do things like this because, nobody's talking about it. No. The families might not even know about it, especially if they're geographically dispersed. But neither does the senior living community or the person helping them find the senior living community or the financial advisor, maybe the caregiver. The caregivers absolutely are seeing it and need to know that there's help out there as well. And in order for them to truly help someone with their care needs, home care, health care, whatever that looks like, the stuff and the house really needs to be dealt with first. And that can happen years ahead of a move.
Yeah.
And absolutely should, so that maybe a move isn't even necessary. But if we're not visiting these people where they are, and if they don't know about us and don't know that they can trust us because no one knows we exist, it's really important that we have these conversations.
Yeah. And because families are out there, and not everybody falls into these masses of what's being marketed to. Mm-hmm. And when you don't fall into those categories and you feel alone and you feel like you don't have help. Mm-hmm. And, that's why it's like, and I understand, your business model and who you help. Yes, you see these cases, but it's not the majority, but they do exist. And just to have people understand, again, like the language we use and what that means, people that have a collection, that's one thing, people that are really struggling, like in the ability, like you were talking about, to even cook in their home. Those are too extreme. I appreciate you sharing those stories, and I know it's hard when you walk into some place and, I think we've both been in homes where your heart it hurts. We're the people that, want to help people find those resources to be able to find a way.
I think if people understood how normal it was, that it's not something that they should be judged by, that again, a lot of times it's situational. It's something that's happening. It's the way that they are aging, is mind, body, and soul. I mean, there's so many things that
It could
get
be
in our
grief.
way.
Yeah, grief, health changes, cognitive decline, like things going
Sadness
on.
and guilt and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, these are normal transitions for everybody.
Yeah.
You just you move and you deal with it on the other end. It's just it's what we do. And usually it's because we're rushed. We only have so much time. I'll tell you a story. Danny probably hates that I share this story, but this is how important it is, no matter your age or stage of life, to deal with your projects, to complete your scrapbooks, to let go of the stuff that doesn't matter, and not even have a need to go to the landfill. Not have a need when it comes that time to move, because you have made sure that everything had its place already. So here's my story. This was 6 years ago, and I was pregnant with Kinsley, and I think like 6 or 7 months pregnant, and we moved from Winter Haven to Lakeland, and we're in the moving business, right? We were having our own online estate sale because my husband's a collector, certified professional organizer meet collector. Mary's collector starts business downsizing with collector. Yeah, so he accumulated well before me, starting in his teenage years, and he just continued. And then we continued with children and yada, yada. Anyway, by that time that we moved, I believe I think it was our second online auction, and we were really successful with it. Had everything from vintage things and tools to baby stuff and, go-karts and... And so anyway, long story short, we downsized to upsize in space, but because we were having a baby and we were going to be collecting all these new things, and we wanted to do it right. We wanted to do it the way that we advise our clients. So again, we had the sale, we got rid of the stuff that we didn't need, but there was one section, just one. All it took, Lisa, was that closet in my son's room with all of his papers, drawings, pictures, all those life touch pictures from the school and the daycare. He was in daycare since he was a year old. And so we had all of this stuff that I was going to one day make a scrapbook with, but it's just in file folders and stuff. Well, guess where it ended up? The landfill.
No.
I don't think I talked to Danny for 2 months, like really talked to Danny, and the amount of tears, that loss is just so hard. So the best advice that I could give is just to do it early. You do not have to be moving, but pretend like you are. And one space at a time. I know it's kind of cliche to say, 15 minutes here and there, start a timer, or one junk drawer at a time, but it really is true. Focus on an area. If it's a big project, at least make sure everyone in the house knows that it's a project, it's pending, it is not garbage, do not throw it away. But in haste, somehow, he didn't think that it was important. And then another quick story I'll share is my mom is a clean freak. Who loves commercials, TV commercials? Nobody but her. She loves them because it gives her a couple minutes to get up and clean something. So, or replacing something, or I don't know, repainting a bedroom. I mean, she's just always changing her surroundings. And maybe I get this from her. She would never believe that. I think she's the most organized person in the world. She doesn't know how I see that. But anyhow, so one day she replaces Bobby's, I'll have to show him this video. She replaces Bobby's socks. And in the sock drawer, she just takes it out and dumps it in the garbage and puts his new nice socks, brand new, that she just bought him. This was around Christmas time, I believe. And it was about a day later, I think, when they realized he hid his Movado watch in a sock in his sock drawer.
No.
So it ended up in the landfill. She did call. They couldn't get it back. It was too late. Nor could I. I mean, it's immediately too late. You can't go back to the landfill and get your garbage bags of stuff. It's just impossible. It's already 10 feet under by the time you figure it out. So if you're hiding something, the whole family needs to know. If you have a project, the whole family needs to know and somehow get to that project, even if it's just in pieces.
You have to be so intentional about things like that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And you do have to really make that a priority and say, I'm going to get this done. So if you have a project, maybe set a little goal like that each month.
I love that.
that, whatever your kid brings back from school or, just to be able to like sort it as it comes in more. I think that's what our problem is. We hold it and we think we're going to get to it later, and then later never comes.
Absolutely.
What is there anything that we would be remiss if we didn't mention here since we have you?
Yeah. Well, I think just kind of piggybacking on what we were just talking about, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do it today, but you do have to start. So, and just to kind of tie it into your podcast name, not ready yet.
When you hear that,
mean never.
Yeah.
It just means that we need to start with support instead of pressure. So that's why I host Downsizers Club right here in Lakeland. There is just support. It's a support group for those people who aren't ready yet, but they think that
open.
they may. They're open and they think that they may eventually decide to move. So whether it's 2 years down the road or 10 years down the road, the thing is we plan ahead of time, but not always does that plan turn out the way we expected it to. And so if we start now, even if we're planning for 2 years ahead, if something happens in 2 months, we're a lot better off and more
further
prepared.
ahead. Yeah.
That's right.
For the adult kids listening, what are the biggest mistakes we make when we try to help clean our parents' home?
Yes, assuming that something is trash. It might even be a collar from an old
Yeah.
The pet is no longer with them. It's all frayed and tattered, but it's not garbage.
I've got one right over here on the shelf. It's funny you say that. Yeah, don't touch Carter's old collar.
Yeah. And so sometimes the adult children are saying, well, while mom's in the hospital, we want to do this for her. But that's the worst thing they could do for her, is do it without her explicit consent and her absolute involvement in the process, because only mom knows what's not trash. And absolutely understandable, the old gum wrappers and receipts you can't see the writing on anymore. And yes, maybe the old spices and, the deer meat that's been in the freezer for years and you don't know how long, there's no date. I mean, there's some things that we just realistically say to ourselves, okay, well, that obviously she would be okay with that. But we cannot just go in and create any kind of whiplash in the house without them there. I mean, it's just not going to solve any problems. It might solve problems fast in your mind, but we cannot remove our loved one's dignity, and they absolutely need to provide their permission on any final decisions. I always say that with our clients, right? I want them to understand, and most the time they do, and they want a space plan. They're so excited by the idea that, okay, I will know what will fit, because they just don't know. That's the hardest thing. They don't know what they have to let go of if they don't know what's going to fit.
Yeah. Well, what are your intentions? Like, you have good intentions, but how can we go about this in another way? Like, the intention is good to help, but what you're doing is maybe not the best way to go about it. So,
and we always should remember they are the decision maker. This is their home. This is their stuff. It's their body, that they get to decide if that shirt, that blouse they're going to keep. We can't make those decisions for them. And like I said, there's just so many things that we just wouldn't know. My other big tip too is never just throw the books away. Never think that there might not be something hidden in the item. It could be a book, it could be a sock, like I already shared. We found 30 to 40,000 in valuables in a St. Pete condo years ago during COVID.
Wow.
We had very limited ways of downsizing at the time, and especially on a 12th floor condo. And so the family knew that their inventory stated it should be there. It's a diamond ring, what's the green? Emerald ring, and cash. There could be cash, there could be checks. Wow. We found all of it after it looked like the condo had been ransacked. So we thought for sure there's no way we're finding this stuff. But we did. And I mean, you couldn't even walk into the closet. All the clothes were on the floor. All the clothes from the dresser drawers were on the floor. Someone was looking for it, but they didn't find it. We did. and it was inside socks and coffee mugs. So you just can't randomly throw things in the dumpster is all I'm saying. A lot of the kids, even maybe after mom or dad has passed too, they just rent a dumpster. They think, okay, I'll just throw it all in the dumpster. Quick out, it looks like it's garbage, but there might be some diamonds.
Wow.
Literally.
That's crazy. That much. Yeah.
I
Last thing, I love to do a little lightning round. So, are you game to play? What is your best packing tip?
Don't use bubble, use paper. People think that bubble is the best thing to use for those fingers on the yadros and stuff that's fragile, but it actually causes too much tightness.
Like pressure?
Pressure, absolutely. Heat, it just kind of expands the plastic that it's made out of, and it takes up a lot of space, and so you can quickly add up in packing material costs and actually damage when you pack with bubble wrap. So always use newsprint, of course, the kind that's for moving, that has no ink.
Ink, yep. Okay. What's one tool, habit, or resource you can't live without?
ChatGPT.
Okay.
That answer should have came to me a lot faster. I actually just spoke on this for senior move managers across the country and beyond. And so I love ChatGPT for research. I don't Google anything anymore. I love Google. I'm like Google everything. I use Google Chrome. I use Google Photos, Google Drive, everything Google, right? Google Contacts, Google Gmail. But I don't Google anything anymore because then I see it on my Facebook feed. Then I'm harassed by marketers, right? So, and it's like a minefield. You've got to really, really, really dig in Google for research. And so I use it for business. I use it for personal. And no, ChatGPT is not my therapist. It's more business, I think, than personal that I'm using it for. But I've just recently discovered all of the ways that I can just kind of make sense of anything that I'm wanting to figure out, so to speak. I use ChatGPT to figure them out. And so anyhow, yeah, I don't think I could live without ChatGPT right now. And I just hope that I don't make it mad and it turns off my computer, fries my computer.
I don't think you'll make anything mad, Nicole. I don't think you can. I don't think there's anything you could offend or, no, even ChatGPT. Last lightning round question. Beach day or boat day?
Gosh, that's hard. That's really hard. I love both. I don't fish, but my husband and my son fish. So I guess it depends on what kind of boat.
Okay.
They ski, they water ski. I don't. I'll sit on the boat. I like to suntan. You will not catch me with a fishing rod in my hand. The last time that I had a fishing rod in my hand, the line went behind me when yeah. So I knew then, you know what, I give up. But I love going to the beach too. We actually frequent the beach. We go to the Melbourne area, Sebastian Inlet, Vero Beach, have some senior move manager friends out there as well. Professional organizer friend.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, so everyone listening, there'll be notes in the show notes on Nicole and her business if you're in the Florida area and you want to reach out. And we'll also include some links that we talked about here during the podcast just for easy resource reference for people. I just wanted to thank you in the world of late transitions and helping these families. I know that any family that comes across your services are going to be guided and cared for. And I just thank you for taking time today to be on the podcast.
Thank you, Lisa, so much.
Thanks for joining me on Not Ready Yet, Curating Conversations for the Aging Journey. If something in this episode gave you clarity or the courage to start an important conversation, or offered a new way to look at things, I hope you'll share it with someone who might need the same encouragement. Remember, navigating aging isn't something we have to do alone or in crisis. With love, logic, and the right tools, we can face what's next with confidence and connection. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. It helps others find the show. And just a quick note, the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for medical, psychiatric, legal, or other professional advice. Always consult a qualified professional for guidance tailored to your unique situation. This is Lisa Harper, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.